Okay, Gen Z, forget everything you think you know about exclusive dining experiences because we're about to spill the tea on the most elite food scene in history, the Divine Dining Hall of Mount Olympus. We're talking about a restaurant where the dress code is literally immortal God, and the menu features exactly two items, ambrosia and nectar. If you thought getting a reservation at that trendy rooftop bar was hard, imagine needing to be a literal deity just to get through the door. Picture this. You're scrolling through Instagram and you see the most aesthetic food content ever. Golden goblets filled with shimmering liquid, perfectly arranged plates of food that literally glow, and everyone at the table is devastatingly beautiful and will never age. That's basically what the daily dining situation looked like on Olympus. Except instead of influencers, it's gods. And instead of carefully curated content, it's just their regular Tuesday. Ambrosia and nectar aren't just food and drink. They're the original superfood combo that makes every modern health trend look like amateur hour. We're talking about sustenance that doesn't just nourish your body. It makes you immortal, keeps you looking like you're forever 25, and gives you the kind of energy that makes Red Bull seem like chamomile tea. It's the ultimate biohacking before biohacking was even a concept. But here's what makes this whole dining experience so fascinating from a Gen Z perspective. It's not just about the food itself. It's about the entire culture of exclusivity, status, and privilege that surrounds it. The gods didn't just eat ambrosia because it tasted good. They ate it because it was the ultimate symbol of their divine status. It's like having a black card, a verified checkmark, and VIP access to every exclusive event rolled into one meal. The aesthetic of these divine dining sessions was absolutely unmatched. We're talking about a dining hall that makes any luxury restaurant look basic. Golden tables, crystal goblets, food that literally radiates light, and servers who are either the most beautiful youth in existence or the goddess of eternal youth herself. Every meal was basically a photo shoot waiting to happen, except the photos would have been too divine for mortal eyes to handle. What's particularly interesting is how the gods treated these meals as both sustenance and social events. This wasn't just about getting nutrition, it was about reinforcing the social hierarchy, celebrating victories, making important decisions, and sometimes just gossiping about the latest drama happening in the mortal world. It's like if your group chat met for brunch every day, except everyone at the table could control the weather, and your conversations could literally reshape reality. The exclusivity factor is what really makes this ancient dining experience relevant to our modern obsession with elite food culture. Think about how people today go crazy for limited edition menu items, exclusive pop-up restaurants, or getting into that one speakeasy that doesn't even have a sign. The gods took this concept to its absolute extreme. Their food was so exclusive that eating it was literally impossible for anyone who wasn't already immortal. But unlike modern exclusive dining, where the exclusivity is often artificial or based on wealth, the divine dining restriction was fundamental to the nature of the food itself. Mortals couldn't just pay more money or know the right people to get access to ambrosia and nectar. The food would have overwhelmed their human systems. It's like having a restaurant where the food is so powerful that you need to be a completely different species just to digest it. The psychological aspect of this exclusive dining culture is fascinating too. The gods didn't just eat ambrosia because they needed to, they ate it because it reinforced their identity as divine beings. Every meal was a reminder of their power, their status, and their separation from the mortal world. It's the ultimate comfort food in the sense that it comforted them about their place in the cosmic hierarchy. From a modern perspective, this divine dining culture reflects our own complicated relationship with exclusive experiences and status symbols. We live in a world where people will wait in line for hours for a cronut, pay hundreds of dollars for a tasting menu, or travel across the world to eat at a specific restaurant. The gods just took this to its logical extreme. Their entire diet was composed of foods that were literally impossible for anyone else to obtain. What's also wild is how the gods managed to make even immortality seem routine through their dining habits. They turned the most extraordinary thing imaginable, food that grants eternal life, into their daily bread. It's like if someone invented a cure for aging and then just casually had it with their morning coffee every day. The banality of the divine is somehow more amazing than the divinity itself. The social media parallels are absolutely unavoidable when you think about Olympian dining culture. Every meal was essentially a content opportunity. Every gathering was a chance to flex their divine lifestyle. And every bite of ambrosia was a reminder to everyone, including themselves, of their elevated status. They were the original influencers, except instead of promoting products, they were promoting the concept of divinity itself. So as we dive deeper into the specifics of ambrosia and nectar, remember that we're not just talking about food, we're talking about the ultimate expression of privilege, power, and the eternal human, or in this case, divine, desire to be part of something exclusive. The gods may have had access to the most incredible sustenance in existence, but they were still just as concerned with status, hierarchy, and social positioning as any modern food influencer. All right, let's talk about the ultimate divine hospitality team, Ganymede and Hebe, the gods who made sure the VIP dining experience on Olympus was nothing short of legendary. If you thought being a server at a high-end restaurant was stressful, imagine being responsible for serving literal immortality to the most powerful beings in the universe on a daily basis. These two are basically the original influencer support team, making sure the gods stay fed, fabulous, and forever young. Meet Ganymede, the eternally handsome cupbearer who has the most exclusive bartending gig in existence. This guy was literally a mortal prince minding his own business when Zeus spotted him and said, "I need that energy in my divine dining room." Zeus transformed into an eagle, swooped down, and basically headhunted Ganymede straight from Earth to Olympus. Talk about the ultimate career upgrade. One day you're royal, the next day you're serving drinks to the king of the gods. What makes Ganymede's story so wild is that he represents the ultimate right place, right time scenario. He was just being his naturally gorgeous self when Zeus decided he needed someone beautiful enough to serve nectar to the gods. It's like getting discovered on TikTok and suddenly being hired as the personal assistant to the most powerful CEO in the world. Ganymede went from mortal prince to divine employee of the month, permanently. Then there's Hebe, the goddess of youth, and the official server of ambrosia. She's not just bringing you food. She's literally serving up the essence of eternal life on a golden platter. Hebe is that perfect employee who never has a bad day, never ages, and somehow makes every interaction feel fresh and energizing. She's the living embodiment of the always-on energy that the gods need to maintain their divine status. From a Gen Z perspective, Ganymede and Hebe are the ultimate gig economy success stories. They found their niche in the divine service industry and absolutely mastered it. Ganymede became the face of divine hospitality, charming, reliable, and aesthetically pleasing enough to enhance the dining experience just by being there. Hebe became the brand ambassador for eternal youth, making sure every interaction with the gods reinforced their image of timeless perfection. The dynamic between these two servers is fascinating because they each bring something different to the table. Ganymede has that discovered talent energy. He's the outsider who was brought in because of his natural charisma and beauty. Hebe has that born for this energy. She's literally the goddess of youth. So serving foods that maintain youthfulness is her natural calling. Together, they create the perfect service team that keeps the gods looking and feeling their best. What's particularly interesting about their roles is how they reflect the modern obsession with youth, beauty, and exclusive experiences. Ganymede was chosen specifically because he was young and beautiful. He's basically the original pretty privilege hire. Hebe represents the wellness industry's promise of eternal youth and vitality. They're serving up the ultimate anti-aging treatment with every meal. The cultural impact of their work is also worth noting. Every time Ganymede pours nectar or Hebe serves ambrosia, they're not just providing sustenance, they're reinforcing the social hierarchy of Olympus. Their service reminds everyone present that they're part of an exclusive club that has access to literally life-changing food. It's the ultimate flex. And they're the ones making it possible. From a workplace dynamics perspective, Ganymede and Hebe have figured out the secret to thriving in a high-pressure environment. They're working for bosses who are notoriously dramatic, petty, and powerful, but they've found ways to be invaluable without getting caught up in the drama. They're the employees who focus on their craft, maintain their professionalism, and somehow stay out of the office politics. The modern parallels to their work are everywhere. Ganymede is every talented bartender who becomes the face of an exclusive cocktail lounge. Hebe is every wellness guru who built their brand around helping people feel young and energized. They're both essential workers who make the luxury experience possible for their clients. Their story also touches on themes of transformation and opportunity. Ganymede went from mortal to immortal through his work, proving that sometimes the right job can literally change your life. Hebe found a way to turn her natural gifts into a meaningful career that serves others. They both show us that there's dignity and power in service when it's done with skill and pride. But let's be real about the problematic aspects of their employment situation. Ganymede was essentially kidnapped for his job, which raises serious questions about consent and agency. The power dynamic between him and Zeus is deeply unequal, and there's no HR department on Olympus to file complaints with. It's a reminder that even the most glamorous jobs can have toxic elements when power is unchecked. Despite these issues, Ganymede and Hebe have managed to carve out meaningful roles for themselves in the divine hierarchy. They're not just servers, they're essential parts of the Olympian ecosystem. Without them, the gods wouldn't be able to maintain their immortality, their beauty, or their energy. They've made themselves indispensable through their dedication to their craft. The aesthetic they bring to divine dining is also unmatched. Picture the most beautiful server you've ever seen. Multiply that by infinity, and you're getting close to the visual impact of Ganymede and Hebe. They don't just serve food, they create an experience that reinforces the gods' sense of their own divine nature. Every interaction with them is a reminder of immortality, beauty, and power. For Gen Z, who are navigating a gig economy where personal branding and aesthetic matter more than ever, Ganymede and Hebe offer valuable lessons about turning your unique qualities into career advantages. They figured out how to leverage their natural gifts, beauty, youth, charm, into positions of influence and security. They're proof that sometimes the best career move is to lean into what makes you special. As we continue exploring the mysteries of Ambrosia and Nectar, remember that behind every exclusive experience are people like Ganymede and Hebe, the ones who make magic happen through their dedication, skill, and commitment to excellence. They might not be the stars of the show, but they're the ones who keep the show running smoothly. All right, Gen Z, let's get into the juicy details about Ambrosia, the OG superfood that kept the gods looking fresh, fierce, and forever young on Mount Olympus. You might have heard the word tossed around in fantasy novels or video games, but what exactly is Ambrosia, and why was it such a big deal for the gods? First off, Ambrosia isn't just one thing. It's a bit of a mythical mystery with different versions depending on who's telling the story. Some ancient sources describe it as a divine food that looks like honey or nectar, while others say it's more like a fragrant, golden substance that could be eaten, drunk, or even used as a perfume. The Greeks themselves weren't entirely consistent about what ambrosia actually looked like, which honestly makes it even more mysterious and appealing. The most common description portrays ambrosia as a honey-like food that tastes better than anything mortals could ever imagine. Picture the most delicious thing you've ever eaten. Multiply that by infinity, and you're getting close to what ambrosia supposedly tastes like. Some myths describe it as having a floral fragrance so intoxicating that just smelling it could make you feel euphoric. It's basically the ancient world's version of the perfect comfort food meets the ultimate sensory experience. But here's what makes ambrosia absolutely wild from a modern perspective. Its effects are literally life-changing. We're not talking about your average superfood that gives you a little energy boost or clearer skin. Ambrosia grants complete immortality, eternal youth, and perfect health. One taste, and you're basically locked into your prime forever. No wrinkles, no gray hair, no diseases, no aging at all. The healing properties of ambrosia are equally incredible. In some stories, it could heal any wound instantly, cure any illness, and even bring the recently dead back to life. When Achilles was killed in the Trojan War, his mother Thetis used ambrosia to preserve his body and prevent decay. It's like having the ultimate first aid kit that can literally reverse death itself. From a Gen Z perspective, ambrosia is basically every wellness trend and anti-aging product rolled into one magical substance. Think about how much money people spend on skincare routines, supplements, fitness programs, and medical treatments just to look and feel younger. The gods had all of that solved with one divine food item. It's the ultimate meal prep. Eat ambrosia once, and you're set for eternity. What's particularly fascinating is how ambrosia represents the ancient world's understanding of the connection between food and vitality. Even thousands of years ago, people understood that what you eat directly impacts how you look and feel. The gods' diet wasn't just about survival. It was about optimization, performance, and maintaining their divine status. The exclusivity of ambrosia also reflects ancient concepts of social hierarchy and privilege. Only gods and a select few immortals were allowed to consume it, which reinforced the idea that they were fundamentally different from mortals. It's like the ultimate members-only club, where the membership requirement is literally being a divine being. No amount of wealth, power, or influence could get a mortal access to ambrosia. This exclusivity created some seriously dramatic consequences when mortals tried to get their hands on divine food. The story of Tantalus is the perfect example. He stole ambrosia from the gods and was punished with eternal hunger and thirst. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of trying to transcend your natural limitations and the consequences of stealing something that was never meant for you. From a modern health and wellness perspective, ambrosia represents our eternal fascination with finding that one miracle solution that will solve all our problems. We're constantly searching for superfoods, supplements, and treatments that promise to make us healthier, younger, and more vibrant. The gods had already found it, but they kept it locked away in their divine dining room. The psychological impact of having access to ambrosia must have been incredible. Imagine never having to worry about aging, illness, or death. The gods could take risks, make mistakes, and engage in dramatic conflicts without fear of permanent consequences. It's the ultimate safety net that allowed them to live with a boldness that mortals could never match. But there's also something slightly melancholic about ambrosia when you think about it. The gods achieved the ultimate goal that humans have been chasing since the beginning of time, eternal life and perfect health. Yet they still seem to struggle with boredom, jealousy, and relationship drama. It suggests that even having everything your body could ever need doesn't guarantee happiness or fulfillment. The various preparation methods for ambrosia also add to its mystique. Some stories mention that it was brought to Olympus by doves, while others suggest it was prepared by the gods themselves. The ambiguity about its origin adds to the sense that ambrosia isn't just food. It's a fundamental force of divine nature that can't be replicated or understood by mortals. For Gen Z, who are navigating a world full of conflicting information about health, nutrition, and self-care, ambrosia represents both the ultimate goal and the ultimate warning. It's tempting to think that there's one perfect solution that will solve all our problems, but the stories of ambrosia remind us that even perfection comes with its own complications. The modern supplement industry basically exists because we're all still looking for our own version of ambrosia. We want that one pill, powder, or potion that will make us look better, feel better, and live longer. While we may never find literal ambrosia, the search for it has driven countless innovations in health and wellness. As we continue exploring the divine dining culture of Olympus, remember that ambrosia represents more than just food. It's a symbol of humanity's eternal quest for perfection, health, and immortality. The gods may have had access to the ultimate superfood, but they still had to figure out how to live meaningful lives with their perfect bodies and endless time. All right, Gen Z, now that we've drooled over the divine superfoods, let's get into the real tea behind the scenes. The politics of who gets to eat what, when, and why on Mount Olympus. We're about to dive deep into the most exclusive dining hierarchy in history, where your access to ambrosia and nectar literally determined your place in the cosmic order. Think about the most exclusive restaurant you've ever heard of. The kind of place where you need 3 referrals, a waiting list, and probably a trust fund just to get a reservation. Now multiply that exclusivity by infinity, because we're talking about food that only immortal beings could even digest. This wasn't just about having enough money or knowing the right people. You had to be literally divine to even qualify for the menu. The hierarchy of divine dining was more complex than any corporate structure you've ever seen. At the top, you had the big 3, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, who basically had unlimited access to ambrosia and nectar whenever they wanted. Then came the Olympian gods like Athena, Apollo, and Artemis, who were part of the exclusive dining club by birthright. Below them were the minor gods, nymphs, and other divine beings who might get invited to the table if they were useful or if the major gods were feeling generous. But here's where it gets really interesting. Even among the gods, there were subtle power dynamics at play during these divine meals. Zeus always got served first. Hera had to be acknowledged as queen even when she was furious about his latest affair, and the younger gods had to wait their turn. It's like the most high-stakes family dinner ever, where everyone's immortal but the drama is still very real. The mortals who occasionally got a taste of divine food were the ultimate exception to the rule. These were usually heroes who had done something extraordinary for the gods, or lovers who had caught the attention of a divine being. But even then, their access was temporary and carefully controlled. It's like being invited to sit at the cool kids' table for one lunch. You're there, but you're not really part of the group. Enter Tantalus, the king who represents the ultimate cautionary tale about trying to hack the divine dining system. This guy was already living the dream. He was invited to eat with the gods, which is basically the ancient equivalent of being invited to the Met Gala. But Tantalus got greedy and decided he wanted to share the divine food with his mortal friends. So he stole ambrosia and nectar from the gods' table, thinking he could get away with it. The punishment for Tantalus was absolutely brutal and perfectly ironic. He was condemned to eternal hunger and thirst, standing in a pool of water that would recede whenever he tried to drink, with fruit trees above him that would pull away whenever he reached for them. The gods literally made him tantalized by the very things he had tried to steal. It's the ultimate you can look but you can't touch punishment. From a Gen Z perspective, Tantalus's story is incredibly relevant to our current culture of access and privilege. He represents everyone who's ever tried to fake their way into an exclusive space, who's pretended to belong somewhere they don't, or who's stolen content or opportunities that weren't meant for them. The internet is full of people trying to hack their way into exclusive communities, and Tantalus shows us what happens when you get caught. The social dynamics of divine dining also reflect our modern obsession with influencer culture and exclusive experiences. Every meal on Olympus was essentially a content opportunity. The gods were literally consuming immortality while flexing their divine status. They weren't just eating. They were performing their godliness for each other and reinforcing the social hierarchy. The serving rituals around ambrosia and nectar were equally political. Ganymede and Hebe weren't just bringing food. They were orchestrating a complex social dance that reinforced everyone's place in the divine order. Who got served first? Who got the best portions? Who sat where? Every detail was loaded with meaning. It's like the ultimate seating chart drama, except the consequences last for eternity. What's particularly fascinating is how the gods used food restrictions to maintain their power. By keeping ambrosia and nectar exclusively for themselves, they ensured that mortals would always remain dependent on them for immortality. It's the ultimate form of gatekeeping, controlling access to the very essence of divine power. The psychology behind this exclusive dining culture reveals something profound about power dynamics. The gods could have easily shared ambrosia with worthy mortals, but they chose not to, because exclusivity was part of what made them special. It's like how some people hoard opportunities or information not because they need to, but because having exclusive access makes them feel important. For modern audiences, the politics of divine dining offer insights into how privilege and exclusivity function in our own world. We see the same dynamics in exclusive social media platforms, members-only clubs, and luxury experiences that are designed to make people feel special by keeping others out. The gods were basically running the original VIP program. The economic implications of divine dining are also worth considering. Unlike mortal food, ambrosia and nectar couldn't be bought, sold, or traded. They could only be given as gifts or privileges. This created a gift economy based on favor and divine approval rather than material wealth. It's like having a currency that can only be earned through relationships and service. The environmental aspect of divine dining is interesting too. The gods had unlimited access to perfect food without any of the environmental costs or moral concerns that come with mortal agriculture. They never had to worry about sustainability, animal welfare, or fair trade. Their food was literally perfect and ethically neutral. It's the ultimate sustainable dining, but only because it exists outside the normal rules of nature. As we continue exploring the divine dining culture, remember that food has always been about more than just nutrition. It's about identity, community, and power. The gods may have had access to literal perfection in their diet, but they still used food to create and maintain social hierarchies. Their exclusive dining culture reveals that even immortal beings need ways to feel special and powerful. Okay, Gen Z, let's talk about nectar, the divine energy drink that makes every Red Bull, Monster, and cold brew look like kindergarten juice boxes. While ambrosia was the solid food that kept the gods immortal, nectar was the liquid that gave them that divine energy boost and kept them functioning at peak performance, 24/7. If you thought caffeine addiction was real, wait until you hear about the gods' dependency on this golden liquid of pure power. First things first, nectar wasn't just any drink. It was the ultimate performance enhancer that delivered instant energy, euphoria, and divine clarity. Imagine the perfect combination of your favorite energy drink, the best coffee you've ever had, and that feeling you get when your favorite song comes on. That's nectar, except it also makes you literally invincible. The gods would start their day with a goblet of nectar like we start ours with coffee, except their morning routine included achieving peak divine consciousness. The serving ritual for nectar was absolutely iconic and shows just how seriously the gods took their hydration game. We're talking about golden goblets that were probably worth more than entire kingdoms, served at the perfect temperature, with the kind of ceremonial importance that makes a Japanese tea ceremony look casual. Every sip was an event, every pour was a performance, and every goblet was a reminder of their divine status. What's particularly fascinating about nectar is how it functioned as both fuel and social lubricant for the gods. This wasn't just about getting the energy they needed to manage their divine responsibilities. It was about creating the perfect atmosphere for their legendary parties, debates, and decision-making sessions. Nectar was what kept the conversation flowing at divine dinner parties and gave the gods the confidence to make those dramatic, world-changing decisions. From a Gen Z perspective, nectar represents our collective obsession with optimization and peak performance. We're the generation that's constantly looking for ways to biohack our energy levels, improve our focus, and achieve that perfect state of productive euphoria. The gods had already figured out the ultimate solution, a drink that delivered instant energy without crashes, come-downs, or negative side effects. The social dynamics around nectar service were equally complex and revealing. Ganymede, as the designated cupbearer, had to master the art of reading the room and knowing exactly when each god needed their nectar refilled. It's like being the world's most skilled bartender, except your customers are immortal beings who can literally destroy you if you mess up their drink order. The pressure must have been incredible, but the job security was literally eternal. The effects of nectar on the gods were immediate and transformative. One sip, and they'd go from whatever divine equivalent of tired existed to being ready to reshape reality, start epic romances, or engage in cosmic battles. It's the ultimate mood enhancer that could take any god from zero to hero in seconds. Think about how much more productive and confident you feel after that perfect cup of coffee, then multiply that by infinity. What makes nectar particularly relevant to modern drinking culture is how it represents the perfect beverage experience. The gods never had to worry about choosing between taste, health benefits, or energy effects to nectar, delivered all three in perfect harmony. It's like having a drink that tastes amazing, makes you feel incredible, and actually improves your health with every sip. No wonder the gods were so protective of their exclusive access. The aesthetic of nectar consumption was absolutely unmatched. Picture the most Instagram-worthy drink you've ever seen. Add some literal divine glow. Serve it in a golden goblet by the most beautiful being in existence, and you're getting close to the visual impact of nectar service. Every drink was a photo opportunity, except the photos would have been too radiant for mortal eyes to process. The psychological impact of unlimited access to nectar must have been incredible for the gods. Never having to worry about energy crashes, bad moods, or feeling less than optimal would fundamentally change how you approach life. The gods could take on any challenge, pursue any passion, or engage in any drama knowing they had the ultimate liquid confidence backing them up. But there's also something slightly concerning about the gods' relationship with nectar when you think about it from a modern perspective. They were essentially dependent on this divine substance to function at their peak, which sounds suspiciously like our own complicated relationship with caffeine and energy drinks. The difference is that nectar was literally perfect and had no negative side effects, while our energy drinks come with crashes, jitters, and health concerns. The exclusivity of nectar also reinforced the divine hierarchy in subtle but important ways. Not only were mortals unable to access this perfect energy drink, but even among the gods, there were probably subtle differences in quality, serving order, and goblet choice that reflected their status. It's like how some people get priority coffee service at exclusive cafes, except the stakes are cosmic and the drinks are literally magical. For Gen Z, who are navigating a world where energy drinks are marketed as lifestyle choices and productivity tools, Nectar represents both the ultimate goal and the ultimate warning. We're constantly searching for that perfect drink that will give us sustainable energy without negative consequences. The gods had found it, but they kept it locked away in their divine dining room. The environmental implications of nectar are also interesting to consider. Unlike mortal beverages, nectar required no resources to produce, created no waste, and had no environmental impact. It's the ultimate sustainable drink, but only because it exists outside the normal rules of nature. It makes our current struggles with sustainable packaging and ethical sourcing seem almost quaint by comparison. The modern beverage industry is basically built on trying to recreate the effects of nectar. Energy drinks promise divine energy, wellness shots claim to deliver instant nutrition, and premium water brands market themselves as life-changing experiences. We're all still chasing that perfect drink that will make us feel like gods, even if we can't achieve literal immortality. As we wrap up our exploration of divine dining culture, remember that nectar represents more than just the ultimate energy drink. It's a symbol of perfection, optimization, and the eternal human quest for that one thing that will make us feel invincible. The gods may have had access to literal liquid perfection, but they still had to figure out how to use that energy to create meaningful lives and relationships. The legacy of nectar lives on in every energy drink commercial, every wellness trend, and every time we reach for that perfect beverage to fuel our ambitions. We may never taste divine nectar, but we can appreciate the God's wisdom in recognizing that the right drink can literally transform your entire experience of life. Just remember, even the perfect energy drink can't solve all your problems, but it can definitely give you the energy to tackle them with divine confidence. All right, Gen Z, buckle up because we're diving into the most consequential snack in mythological history, Persephone's pomegranate seeds. We're talking about 6 tiny seeds that literally changed the fate of the world, created the seasons, and gave us the ultimate cautionary tale about making decisions when you're hungry and traumatized. If you thought choosing what to eat for lunch was stressful, imagine accidentally eating something that binds you to the underworld for eternity. Let's set the scene. Persephone has been kidnapped by Hades and is basically being held hostage in the underworld while her mother Demeter is having a complete breakdown on the surface. The earth is dying because Demeter has gone on a grief strike and refuses to let anything grow until her daughter is returned. Meanwhile, Persephone is stuck in this dark, gloomy realm, probably stress-eating and definitely not having the time of her life. Now here's where the story gets really interesting from a psychological perspective. Persephone has been refusing to eat anything in the underworld because she knows that consuming food from the realm of the dead will bind her to it. This girl has been basically on a hunger strike, which is simultaneously an act of rebellion and self-preservation. She's literally starving herself to maintain her connection to the world of the living. But here's the thing about hunger strikes. They're incredibly difficult to maintain, and eventually, physical needs can override even the strongest willpower. After what must have been days or weeks of refusing food, Persephone finally breaks down and eats 6 pomegranate seeds. It's such a human moment. She's tired, she's hungry, she's emotionally drained, and she makes a decision that has cosmic consequences. From a Gen Z perspective, this story hits different because it's essentially about consent, coercion, and the ways that trauma can impact our decision-making. Persephone didn't choose to eat those seeds because she wanted to stay in the underworld. She ate them because she was in an impossible situation where all her options were bad. It's like being forced to sign a contract when you're under extreme duress. The pomegranate itself is deeply symbolic in ways that are both beautiful and tragic. Pomegranates have always been associated with fertility, abundance, and the cycle of life and death. The fruit is full of seeds, representing potential and new life, but it's also blood red and associated with the underworld. It's the perfect symbol for Persephone's situation, caught between life and death, growth and decay. What makes this story particularly relevant to modern audiences is how it deals with the concept of binding agreements made under duress. The idea that eating underworld food would trap you, there wasn't just a random rule. It was a fundamental law of cosmic justice. But Persephone didn't have access to good legal counsel or a support system when she made that decision. She was isolated, traumatized, and operating under extreme stress. The number 6 is also significant in ways that add layers to the story. 6 seeds for 6 months of the year that Persephone must spend in the underworld. It's like the universe's way of saying that even small actions can have proportional consequences. She didn't eat the whole pomegranate, so she's not trapped forever. But she ate enough to create a permanent obligation. The creation of the seasons from this one snack is absolutely wild when you think about it. Every winter we experience is basically Demeter going into grief mode because her daughter is back in the underworld. Every spring is the celebration of Persephone's return. One girl's trauma response to being kidnapped literally shapes the entire natural world. From a mental health perspective, this story is incredibly relevant to understanding seasonal depression and the cyclical nature of grief. The idea that darkness and light, depression and joy are natural cycles rather than permanent states is actually quite healing. Persephone's story reminds us that even the darkest periods eventually give way to renewal and growth. The pomegranate seeds also represent the way that trauma can create permanent changes in our lives. Persephone can never fully return to her innocent, carefree existence as Demeter's daughter. She's been changed by her experience, and that change manifests as a permanent split between her two worlds. It's a powerful metaphor for how surviving difficult experiences can fundamentally alter who we are. What's particularly poignant about the pomegranate seeds is how they represent a moment of human weakness that has cosmic consequences. Persephone wasn't making a calculated decision to split her time between worlds. She was just momentarily overwhelmed by her basic human needs. It's a reminder that even the smallest actions can have far-reaching effects. The story also highlights the importance of understanding the rules of the spaces we enter. Persephone knew that eating underworld food would bind her there, but in her moment of weakness, she forgot or chose to ignore that knowledge. It's like signing up for a social media platform without reading the terms of service. You think you understand what you're agreeing to, but the consequences can be more binding than you realize. For Gen Z, who are constantly navigating digital spaces with their own complex rules and consequences, Persephone's story offers important lessons about informed consent and the importance of understanding the full implications of our choices. Whether it's sharing personal information online, entering into relationships, or making commitments, we need to be aware of how our decisions might bind us in ways we don't initially understand. The pomegranate seeds also represent the power of small actions to create lasting change. Persephone didn't eat a whole meal. She ate 6 tiny seeds. But those seeds were enough to create a permanent connection between her and the underworld. It's a reminder that transformation doesn't always require grand gestures. Sometimes the smallest choices can be the most significant. The seasonal aspect of Persephone's story is also incredibly relevant to modern discussions about work-life balance and the importance of cyclical rest. Her split between the underworld and the surface world can be seen as a metaphor for the need to balance different aspects of our lives. We all need seasons of intensity and seasons of rest, periods of darkness and periods of light. The story also touches on themes of adaptation and resilience. Persephone eventually learns to thrive in both worlds, becoming a powerful queen in the underworld while maintaining her connection to the surface. Her ability to navigate both realms successfully shows us that it's possible to integrate traumatic experiences into our lives in ways that make us stronger and more complex. As we continue exploring mythical fruits and their transformative properties, remember that Persephone's pomegranate seeds teach us about the power of food to bind us to places, people, and experiences. They remind us that every choice we make, no matter how small, has the potential to change our lives in ways we might not initially understand. Sometimes the most significant decisions are the ones we make when we're hungry, tired, and just trying to survive. All right, Gen Z, let's talk about Dionysus and figs, the ultimate party god and his signature fruit that basically invented the concept of eat, drink, and be merry. If you thought pineapple on pizza was controversial, wait until you hear about how figs became the ancient world's ultimate party snack and symbol of everything wild, fertile, and slightly scandalous. We're diving into the fruit that helped launch 1,000 festivals and became the go-to snack for anyone looking to channel their inner hedonist. Meet Dionysus, the god who basically invented the party scene and made figs his signature fruit. This isn't just any fruit association. Figs were literally sacred to Dionysus because they represented everything he stood for: abundance, fertility, pleasure, and the kind of wild energy that makes you forget your responsibilities and dance until dawn. While other gods had serious symbols like owls or lightning bolts, Dionysus chose a fruit that's basically nature's candy and historically associated with, well, let's just say, adult activities. The fig connection runs deep in ways that are both fascinating and slightly NSFW. In ancient times, figs were considered aphrodisiacs and symbols of sexual fertility, which made them perfect for a god whose festivals were known for getting pretty wild. The shape of the fig, when cut open, was seen as resembling female anatomy, which added another layer to its association with fertility and pleasure. It's like Dionysus looked at all the possible fruits and said, I want the one that's most likely to make people think about sex. From a Gen Z perspective, Dionysus and his fig obsession represent the ultimate live your best life energy. He's the god who said, Work-life balance is overrated and decided that life should be one continuous festival punctuated by really good food and wine. The fig was his way of saying that pleasure isn't just acceptable, it's sacred. It's the ancient equivalent of those Instagram accounts that are all about embracing hedonism and living in the moment. The cultural impact of figs in Dionysian festivals was absolutely massive. These weren't just religious ceremonies. They were full-scale celebrations where people would eat figs, drink wine, and engage in all kinds of activities that would probably get them banned from most modern social media platforms. The fig became a symbol of letting go of inhibitions and embracing your most primal instincts. It's like the ancient world's version of festival culture, except with more religious significance and better fruit. What makes the fig particularly perfect for Dionysus is its unique growing process. Figs have this incredible ability to produce fruit without visible flowers. They basically create sweetness from what looks like nothing. This magical quality made them perfect for a god who was all about transformation, mystery, and finding pleasure in unexpected places. It's like nature's way of saying that the best things in life often come from sources you didn't see coming. The nutritional properties of figs also align perfectly with Dionysus's party god persona. They're packed with natural sugars that give you an instant energy boost. Plus, they're rich in minerals that help with everything from bone health to muscle function. Basically, figs are the perfect party fuel. They give you energy to dance all night while also providing the nutrients your body needs to recover. It's like Dionysus figured out the ultimate pre-gaming snack thousands of years before anyone else. From a modern festival perspective, figs represent the kind of elevated snacking that would fit perfectly at Coachella or any other major music festival. They're exotic enough to feel special, sweet enough to satisfy cravings, and packed with enough nutrients to keep you going through multiple sets. Plus, they're Instagram-worthy in a way that regular fruit just isn't. Dionysus basically invented the concept of aesthetic food choices. The seasonal timing of figs is also perfectly aligned with Dionysian energy. Fresh figs ripen in late summer and early fall, which is traditionally harvest time and the season for celebrating abundance. It's when people have worked hard all year and are ready to enjoy the fruits of their labor. Literally, the fig harvest became a natural excuse for festivals, parties, and general revelry. What's particularly interesting about Dionysus's relationship with figs is how it reflects ancient attitudes toward pleasure and indulgence. In many cultures, there's tension between asceticism and hedonism, between self-denial and self-indulgence. Dionysus and his figs represented the radical idea that pleasure might actually be divine, that enjoying life's sweetness might be a form of worship. The fig's association with abundance is also worth exploring. A single fig tree can produce massive amounts of fruit, and the fruit itself is incredibly rich and satisfying. For Dionysus, this abundance wasn't just about having enough, it was about having more than enough, about living in a state of overflow rather than scarcity. It's the ancient equivalent of the abundance mindset that modern wellness culture is always talking about. For Gen Z, who are navigating a world where pleasure is often commodified and authentic joy can feel elusive, Dionysus's fig philosophy offers some interesting insights. He suggests that true pleasure isn't about expensive experiences or exclusive access. It's about finding sweetness in natural, accessible things. Figs grow on trees. You don't need a membership or special credentials to enjoy them. The social aspect of fig consumption in Dionysian culture is also relevant to modern party dynamics. Figs were typically eaten communally, shared among friends and festival goers, as part of the collective experience. There's something about sharing sweet, messy fruit that breaks down social barriers and creates intimacy. It's like the ancient world's version of passing around snacks at a house party. The fig's reputation as an aphrodisiac adds another layer to its role in Dionysian culture. These festivals weren't just about drinking and dancing. They were about embracing all forms of human pleasure and connection. The fig became a symbol of the idea that physical pleasure and spiritual experience weren't separate things, but different aspects of the same divine energy. From a modern nutrition perspective, figs are basically the perfect party food. They're naturally sweet but not overly processed. They provide sustained energy without a crash, and they're packed with fiber and minerals that help your body process other indulgences. Dionysus basically figured out the ideal combination of pleasure and health thousands of years before anyone was talking about clean eating. The environmental aspects of fig cultivation also align with Dionysian values. Fig trees are incredibly resilient and can grow in challenging conditions, which makes them perfect symbols for finding joy and abundance even in difficult circumstances. They're also relatively sustainable and don't require intensive farming practices. It's like Dionysus was ahead of his time in choosing an eco-friendly party fruit. As we continue exploring mythical fruits and their cultural significance, remember that Dionysus and his figs teach us about the importance of finding sacred pleasure in everyday experiences. They remind us that joy doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. Sometimes the sweetest moments come from sharing simple, natural pleasures with people we care about. The fig may be small, but it carries the big message that life is meant to be enjoyed, not just endured. All right, Gen Z, let's talk about the golden apples of the Hesperides, the OG luxury fruit that makes every limited edition Supreme drop look like child's play. We're diving into the story of the most exclusive fruit in mythology, the kind of apples that were literally too precious for gods to eat casually and required one of the greatest heroes in history to steal them. If you thought getting concert tickets was stressful, imagine having to complete 12 impossible tasks just to get your hands on some really good fruit. Picture this. At the western edge of the world, there's a secret garden tended by the daughters of Atlas called the Hesperides. This isn't just any garden. It's the ultimate private orchard where the tree of golden apples grows, producing fruit so perfect that it grants immortality to anyone who eats it. The apples are literally made of gold. They glow with divine light, and they're guarded by a 100-headed dragon named Ladon who never sleeps. It's like Apple, the company, decided to make actual apples and crank the exclusivity factor up to 11. The security system for these apples was absolutely insane. We're talking about a dragon with 100 heads, each one capable of speaking different languages, positioned to watch every angle of the tree. Plus, the Hesperides themselves were immortal nymphs, whose only job was to tend the tree and make sure no one unauthorized got near it. It's like having the world's most high-tech security system combined with the most dedicated customer service team ever. Enter Hercules, who gets tasked with stealing these golden apples as his 11th labor. This isn't just a simple heist. It's a mission that requires him to literally hold up the sky while Atlas goes to get the apples for him. The level of effort required to obtain these fruits is absolutely bonkers. It's like if you had to climb Mount Everest, learn quantum physics, and negotiate world peace just to get a really good smoothie. From a Gen Z perspective, the golden apples represent the ultimate, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey experience. The apples themselves are amazing. They grant immortality, they're beautiful, they're probably delicious, but the real story is about what Hercules has to go through to get them. It's like those exclusive experiences that are mostly valuable because they're hard to get, not because they're necessarily better than accessible alternatives. The symbolism of golden apples is incredibly rich and relevant to modern consumer culture. Gold has always represented perfection, purity, and ultimate value. By making the apples gold, the myth is literally saying these are the most perfect fruits imaginable. They're not just food, they're status symbols, power sources, and representations of divine blessing all rolled into one. What makes these apples particularly fascinating is how they represent the concept of unobtainium, something that's theoretically achievable but practically impossible to obtain. The apples exist, they're sitting right there on the tree, but getting to them requires resources and abilities that are beyond what most people can manage. It's like seeing the perfect apartment online but realizing you'd need to be a billionaire to afford it. The psychological impact of pursuing impossible goals is something the golden apples illustrate perfectly. Hercules doesn't just want the apples because they're useful. He wants them because they're the ultimate achievement, the thing that proves he's capable of literally anything. It's the ancient equivalent of those achievement hunters who spend thousands of hours trying to get rare game collectibles. The environmental setup of the Hesperides garden is also worth noting. This isn't some sterile vault where the apples are stored. It's a thriving ecosystem where the tree grows naturally, tended by beings who understand and respect its power. The apples aren't mass-produced or artificially created. They're the product of perfect conditions and careful cultivation. It's like the ultimate farm-to-table experience, except the table belongs to gods. From a modern luxury perspective, the golden apples represent everything that high-end brands try to achieve: exclusivity, perfect quality, and the kind of desirability that makes people willing to go to extreme lengths to possess them. They're the Hermes Birkin bag of the fruit world. Valuable partly because they're excellent, but mostly because they're impossible to get. The role of the Hesperides as guardians adds another layer to the story. These aren't just security guards. They're passionate caretakers who understand the true value of what they're protecting. They represent the idea that some things are too precious to be treated as mere commodities. It's like having curators for the most important experiences in life. The dragon Ladon is also fascinating from a security perspective. A 100-headed dragon that never sleeps is basically the ultimate deterrent system. But it's not just about keeping people out. It's about making sure that anyone who does manage to get the apples has proven themselves worthy. It's like having security that's also a character test. What's particularly relevant about Hercules' approach to obtaining the apples is how he has to use strategy rather than brute force. He can't just fight his way to the tree. He has to convince Atlas to help him, which requires understanding Atlas's situation and finding a way to make it work for both of them. It's like the ultimate networking challenge where you have to build relationships to access exclusive opportunities. The temporary nature of Hercules' possession of the apples is also worth considering. He doesn't get to keep them forever. He has to return them to Eurystheus, who then gives them back to Athena, who returns them to the garden. The apples are too powerful to be owned permanently by any individual. It's like being granted temporary access to something amazing, but knowing you can't keep it forever. For Gen Z, who are dealing with unprecedented levels of economic inequality and artificial scarcity, the Golden Apple story offers both critique and inspiration. It critiques the idea that some things should be so exclusive that they're practically impossible to obtain, but it also inspires us to think about what we're willing to work for and what kinds of achievements are truly worth pursuing. The story also touches on themes of sustainability and stewardship. The Hesperides don't hoard the apples or try to monetize them. They care for the tree and ensure it continues to produce fruit. It's a model of how to manage precious resources in a way that preserves them for the future. The golden apples ultimately represent the human tendency to want what we can't have, and to assign extra value to things based on their rarity rather than their intrinsic worth. They remind us that sometimes the most valuable experiences are the ones that require us to grow, to prove ourselves, and to develop skills we didn't know we had. As we continue exploring mythical fruits and their significance, remember that the golden apples teach us about the relationship between difficulty and value. They show us that some things are worth working for, not because they're inherently better, but because the process of obtaining them transforms us into people capable of handling them. Sometimes the real treasure isn't the prize itself, but who you become in the process of earning it. All right, Gen Z, buckle up because we're diving into one of the most iconic moments of drama in all of mythology, the Apple of Discord, and how a single fruit literally started the Trojan War. We're talking about the OG viral moment that proves petty drama has been ruining lives for thousands of years, and how one goddess's hurt feelings created the most devastating conflict in ancient history. If you thought your friend group's drama was intense, wait until you hear about the time three goddesses fought over who was prettiest and accidentally destroyed an entire civilization. Picture this. There's a divine wedding happening. Peleus and Thetis are tying the knot, and literally everyone who's anyone in the pantheon is invited. Everyone except Eris, the goddess of strife and chaos, who gets left off the guest list because, let's be honest, who wants the embodiment of drama at their wedding? But Eris isn't about to let this slide. She's that person who shows up uninvited to parties just to prove a point. So what does Eris do? She crafts the most passive-aggressive wedding gift in history, a golden apple with the words, "For the fairest," inscribed on it, then tosses it right into the middle of the reception. It's like dropping a subtweet in the middle of a family gathering, except the subtweet is made of gold and has cosmic consequences. The audacity is absolutely breathtaking. She basically said, "If I can't celebrate, nobody can." Immediately, three goddesses step forward to claim the apple: Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. Each one is convinced she's obviously the fairest, and therefore deserves the apple. It's like when three influencers all think they should win the same brand partnership. The competition gets ugly fast. What started as a wedding celebration quickly turns into the most high-stakes beauty contest in history. The problem is, nobody wants to judge this contest because picking a winner means making two extremely powerful goddesses very angry. So they find Paris, a mortal prince who's minding his own business as a shepherd, and basically force him to decide which goddess is the most beautiful. Poor Paris has no idea he's about to make a decision that will literally change the course of history. Each goddess tries to bribe Paris with something incredible. Hera offers him political power and the ability to rule over all of Asia. Athena promises him wisdom and skill in battle that would make him the greatest warrior who ever lived. But Aphrodite? She goes for the classic move. She promises him the love of the most beautiful woman in the world. And Paris, being a young man who's probably never had a serious relationship, chooses love over power or wisdom. Here's where things get really messy. The most beautiful woman in the world is Helen of Sparta, who's already married to King Menelaus. Aphrodite basically promised Paris someone else's wife, which is problematic on multiple levels. But she delivers on her promise, and Paris ends up abducting Helen and taking her back to Troy. It's like if someone promised you could marry your celebrity crush without mentioning they're already in a committed relationship. The aftermath is absolutely catastrophic. Menelaus is furious about his wife being kidnapped, so he calls in all his allies to help him get her back. This leads to the Trojan War, a conflict that lasts 10 years and results in the complete destruction of Troy. Thousands of people die, entire families are wiped out, and legendary heroes like Achilles and Hector lose their lives. All because three goddesses couldn't share one apple. From a Gen Z perspective, this story is the ultimate cautionary tale about how social media drama can spiral out of control. The apple of discord is basically the ancient equivalent of a viral tweet that starts drama nobody asked for. Eris's apple is like that one post that's obviously designed to start fights. And the three goddesses taking the bait is like watching your friends fall for obvious trolling. The beauty contest aspect is particularly relevant to modern discussions about comparison culture and the toxicity of constantly ranking people against each other. The idea that there can only be one fairest goddess reflects the same mentality that drives people to compete over followers, likes, and validation. It's the ancient version of those hot or not apps that reduce people to their physical appearance. What makes this story even more tragic is how it shows the ripple effects of privileged people's drama on regular folks. The goddesses are fighting over an apple, but it's mortal humans who end up dying in the war that results from their conflict. It's like when celebrities have public feuds that somehow end up affecting their fans' lives. The powerful people create the drama, but everyone else pays the price. The psychology behind each goddess's reaction to the apple is fascinating. Hera, as Zeus's wife, probably felt like she deserved recognition for her status and power. Athena, as the goddess of wisdom, might have thought her intelligence made her the most worthy. Aphrodite, as the goddess of beauty, saw the apple as obvious validation of her domain. Each one's identity was so tied up in being the best that they couldn't handle the possibility of not winning. The role of Paris as the judge is also incredibly problematic when you think about it. He's basically a random guy who gets put in an impossible position and makes a decision based on personal desire rather than any objective criteria. It's like asking someone to judge a competition where they have a personal stake in the outcome. The whole setup was designed to create conflict rather than resolve it. From a modern conflict resolution perspective, the Apple of Discord story shows us everything not to do when dealing with competition and jealousy. Instead of finding a way for all three goddesses to be celebrated for their unique qualities, the setup forced them into direct competition. It's like those toxic workplace environments where employees are pitted against each other instead of being encouraged to collaborate. The story also illustrates the danger of external validation and the need for recognition. The apple itself isn't particularly valuable. It's just a piece of fruit with some words on it. But because it represents public acknowledgement of beauty, it becomes worth fighting for. It's like how people will go to extreme lengths for social media validation that doesn't actually improve their lives. The gender dynamics in the story are also worth examining. The three most powerful goddesses in the pantheon are reduced to competing over their appearance, judged by a mortal man who doesn't know them personally. It's like having female CEOs compete in a beauty pageant judged by some random guy from accounting. The whole setup diminishes their actual accomplishments and reduces them to their physical attributes. For Gen Z, who are constantly navigating comparison culture and social media competition, the Apple of Discord offers several important lessons. First, it shows how quickly petty drama can escalate when people let their egos get involved. Second, it demonstrates the importance of not taking bait when someone is obviously trying to start conflict. Third, it reminds us that there's usually room for multiple people to be successful without having to tear each other down. The story also warns us about the dangers of making major decisions based on immediate gratification rather than long-term consequences. Paris chose the promise of love over wisdom or power, which seemed like a good idea at the time, but ultimately led to disaster. It's like choosing to post something controversial for likes without thinking about how it might affect your relationships or reputation. The Apple of Discord has become a cultural symbol for the small thing that starts a big conflict. We use the phrase Apple of Discord to describe any seemingly minor issue that reveals deeper tensions and leads to major problems. It's like that one comment in a group chat that makes everyone realize they have unresolved issues. In our current era of viral content and cancel culture, the story feels more relevant than ever. We've all seen how one poorly worded tweet or misunderstood post can spiral into massive controversy. The Apple of Discord reminds us that sometimes the best response to obvious drama bait is to ignore it entirely. The environmental symbolism is also interesting. The apple appears at a wedding, which should be a celebration of love and unity, but instead becomes a source of division. It's like how trolls often target positive spaces, specifically because they want to destroy happiness. The contrast between the setting, a joyful celebration, and the outcome, war and destruction, makes the story even more tragic. As we wrap up this tale of divine drama gone wrong, remember that the Apple of Discord teaches us about the power of choosing not to engage with conflict. Sometimes the most mature response to someone trying to start drama is to walk away. The goddesses could have refused to compete. Paris could have declined to judge, and Eris could have dealt with her hurt feelings in a healthier way. The story ultimately shows us that our reactions to conflict are often more important than the conflict itself. The apple was just a piece of fruit with some words on it, but the way everyone responded to it changed the course of history. It's a reminder that we have the power to choose how we respond to drama, and that sometimes the most powerful choice is to simply not participate. All right, let's get real about the forbidden fruits in Greek mythology. Those tantalizing treats that come with a catch, a curse, or a cosmic consequence. These aren't just snacks. They're loaded with symbolism about boundaries, temptation, and the price of crossing lines that weren't meant to be crossed. First up, the gods were pretty serious about keeping their food sacred and exclusive. The idea that mortals couldn't just chow down on ambrosia or nectar wasn't just about privilege, it was about the fundamental difference between the mortal and divine realms. Eating what wasn't meant for you could literally change your fate, and not in a good way. Take the story of Tantalus, for example. This guy had the ultimate VIP access. He was invited to dine with the gods themselves. But instead of being grateful, he tried to sneak some of that divine cuisine back to his mortal friends. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well. His punishment? Eternal hunger and thirst, forever tormented by unreachable food and water? Talk about a cosmic, you can't have it moment. This story hits close to home when you think about how society polices access to resources and opportunities. Sometimes, the rules about who gets what feel arbitrary and cruel, and those left out are left to suffer the consequences. The myth of forbidden fruit reminds us that boundaries exist for a reason, and that trying to bypass them can backfire spectacularly. But it's not just about physical food. Forbidden fruits also symbolize the choices we make under pressure or without full understanding. Remember Persephone's pomegranate seeds? Eating those 6 little seeds bound her to the underworld for half the year, creating the cycle of seasons. It's a powerful metaphor for how small decisions, especially when made in vulnerable moments, can have lasting effects. In today's world, this resonates with the idea of informed consent and understanding the long-term impact of our choices. Whether it's signing contracts, entering relationships, or making life-changing decisions, knowing what you're getting into is crucial. The myths warn us about the dangers of impulsivity and the importance of respecting boundaries, both our own and others. Another layer to forbidden fruits is the tension between desire and restraint. The gods' strict rules about their food reflect a broader theme in mythology about temptation and self-control. The allure of the forbidden is powerful, but so are the consequences of giving in without caution. This dynamic is something many people, especially young adults, grapple with today. Whether it's social media, relationships, or personal goals, the temptation to overreach or to chase what's off limits can be intense. The myths encourage us to think critically about what we pursue and to weigh the costs carefully. The pattern of forbidden consumption appears across cultures and throughout history. From the biblical apple in Eden to Pandora's box, humanity has always been fascinated by the things we're told not to touch. Greek mythology adds its own twist with divine food that's not just forbidden, but literally dangerous to mortals. What makes these stories particularly compelling is how they explore the psychology of temptation. The gods don't just say, "Don't eat this." They create elaborate systems of access and exclusion that make the forbidden fruit even more desirable. It's like the ultimate marketing strategy for making something irresistible. The consequences of eating forbidden fruit are often transformative rather than simply punitive. Persephone becomes queen of the underworld. Tantalus becomes a cautionary tale. And other characters who break divine food rules often find themselves fundamentally changed. These aren't just stories about punishment. They're about evolution, growth, and the price of crossing thresholds. The stories also reveal something profound about power dynamics and control. The gods maintain their superiority partly through food restrictions, creating artificial scarcity around resources that could theoretically be shared. It's reminiscent of how access to information, opportunities, or resources is controlled in modern society. The tragic irony in many of these tales is that the forbidden fruit often represents something the characters genuinely need or desire. Tantalus wanted to share divine blessings with his friends. Persephone was literally starving when she ate the pomegranate seeds. The prohibition creates suffering that could be avoided if the rules were different. Finally, the stories of forbidden fruits often end with transformation, sometimes tragic, sometimes empowering. Whether it's Persephone becoming queen of the underworld or Tantalus's eternal punishment, these myths show that crossing boundaries changes us irrevocably. The wisdom embedded in these ancient tales remains relevant today. They remind us that some boundaries exist for protection, that impulsive decisions can have lasting consequences, and that understanding the full context of our choices is crucial. They also challenge us to think about which boundaries are truly necessary and which might be artificial constructs designed to maintain power imbalances. So, next time you're faced with a tempting forbidden fruit, whether literal or metaphorical, remember these ancient stories? Sometimes, the wisest choice is to hold back, to understand fully before you act, and to honor the limits that keep us safe and whole. But also remember that some boundaries are meant to be questioned, and that transformation often requires taking calculated risks. Picture this. You're applying for the most prestigious position in ancient Greece, patron deity of Athens, the cultural and intellectual powerhouse of the Mediterranean world. Your competition? Poseidon, god of the seas and earthquakes, who also happens to be one of the most powerful deities in the pantheon. The entire future of Western civilization basically hangs on your performance in what amounts to the ultimate divine job interview. This wasn't just any ordinary competition. This was a pitch meeting where two gods had to demonstrate their value proposition to an entire city-state. The Athenians needed a patron deity who would guide their city toward prosperity and greatness, so they decided to let the gods compete by offering gifts that would benefit the community. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of competing startups presenting to investors, except the stakes were eternal, and the investors were an entire civilization. The contest itself was a masterclass in different leadership philosophies. Poseidon went first with his signature move. He struck the ground with his trident and created either a horse or a saltwater spring, depending on which version you follow. Both gifts were undeniably impressive displays of raw divine power. The horse was valuable for warfare and transportation, while the spring showed his mastery over water, the essence of life itself. But here's where Poseidon's approach reveals something crucial about his mindset. He was essentially offering tools of dominance and conflict. The horse was primarily useful for war and conquest, while the saltwater spring, though beautiful, wasn't actually practical for daily life. His gift screamed, "Look at my power," without considering the long-term needs of the people he was supposed to serve. Athena's approach was completely different and, honestly, revolutionary. She knelt down and planted a simple olive tree. No lightning bolts, no earthquakes, no dramatic displays of supernatural ability, just a tree. To anyone watching, it probably seemed underwhelming compared to Poseidon's flashy demonstration. But this humble tree represented something profound: sustainable prosperity. The olive tree was the ultimate long-term investment. It provided food through olives, oil for cooking and lighting, wood for building, and medicine for healing. Unlike Poseidon's gifts, which were impressive but limited, the olive tree would keep giving benefits for generations. It was also a symbol of peace and wisdom, suggesting a future where Athens could thrive through diplomacy and cultural achievement rather than constant warfare. What makes this story brilliant is how it reveals the wisdom of the Athenian people. Despite Poseidon's intimidating display of power and his status as one of the most feared gods in the pantheon, they chose Athena's humble olive tree. They recognize that true leadership isn't about flashy demonstrations of strength, it's about providing practical solutions that improve people's daily lives. Their choice had massive consequences that are still felt today. Athens became the birthplace of democracy, philosophy, theater, and many of the intellectual traditions that shape Western civilization. This wasn't coincidental. It was the direct result of choosing a patron goddess who valued wisdom, strategic thinking, and long-term planning over brute force and immediate gratification. The olive tree became more than just Athens' symbol. It became a global icon of peace, prosperity, and sustainable growth. The olive branch remains one of the most recognized symbols of peace in the world today. Meanwhile, Poseidon's gifts, while impressive, didn't create lasting cultural change. This ancient job interview offers timeless lessons about leadership and decision-making. In our era of viral marketing and flashy presentations, Athena's approach reminds us that substance matters more than style. The best leaders are often those who offer practical solutions rather than dramatic promises. The contest also highlights different approaches to problem solving that we see in modern organizations. There's the Poseidon approach: impressive, immediate, and focused on demonstrating power. Then there's the Athena approach: thoughtful, sustainable, and focused on long-term benefits. The most successful leaders tend to combine both approaches, but when forced to choose, wisdom usually trumps power. What strikes me most about this story is how it validates the kind of quiet, strategic leadership that often gets overlooked in our attention economy world. Athena didn't try to out-spectacle Poseidon or compete on his terms. Instead, she played to her strengths and offered something genuinely valuable. It's a reminder that you don't have to be the loudest person in the room to be the most effective. The environmental symbolism is also incredibly relevant today. Athena's olive tree represents sustainable development and working with nature rather than against it. Anyone concerned about climate change and environmental sustainability can appreciate the wisdom of choosing long-term ecological benefits over short-term impressive displays. This contest between gods ultimately shows us that the best solutions are often the simplest ones, and that true innovation comes from understanding what people actually need rather than what might impress them. Athens chose progress over power, sustainability over spectacle, and wisdom over warfare. The results speak for themselves. Their city became the foundation of Western civilization. Let's examine Poseidon's strategy in this divine competition. Because honestly, his approach tells us everything we need to know about ego-driven leadership and why flashy displays often mask deeper insecurities. When it was his turn to impress the Athenians, Poseidon didn't hold back. He went full shock and awe, with a demonstration that was equal parts magnificent and completely tone-deaf. The moment Poseidon struck the ground with his trident, the earth split open, and either a magnificent horse sprang forth, or a saltwater spring gushed up from the depths. Both versions of the story emphasize the same thing. This was a massive display of raw divine power that left everyone watching in stunned silence. The ground literally trembled under his authority, and the gift he produced was undeniably impressive. But here's where things get interesting. Poseidon's gift reveals everything about his worldview and priorities. If he created a horse, he was essentially offering Athens a tool of war and conquest. Horses in ancient times were primarily military assets, symbols of strength and dominance on the battlefield. If he created a saltwater spring, he was showing off his mastery over water while giving them something that looked amazing but wasn't actually useful for daily life. Either way, Poseidon's approach screamed, "Look how powerful I am," without much consideration for what the Athenians actually needed. He was solving for his own ego first, and the city's needs second. It's the divine equivalent of a tech startup presenting a solution that's technically impressive but doesn't address any real problems. The psychology behind Poseidon's choice reveals a lot about his character and his relationship with power. As god of the seas, he was used to ruling through force and intimidation. Storms, earthquakes, and tsunamis were his calling cards. He was the god you feared rather than the god you loved. His gift to Athens reflected this same approach: impressive, intimidating, and ultimately about demonstrating his dominance. This kind of leadership style might seem effective on the surface, but it has serious limitations. Leaders who rely primarily on displays of power often struggle with sustainability and long-term thinking. They excel at creating dramatic moments, but falter when it comes to building lasting value. Poseidon's gift was memorable, but it didn't offer the kind of sustained benefit that would make Athens truly prosperous. The timing of his dramatic gesture also speaks to his competitive nature. Going first in the contest meant he set the tone and established the expectation that this would be about impressive displays rather than practical solutions. It's like presenting first in a meeting and immediately raising the bar so high that everyone else has to match your energy level. What makes Poseidon's approach particularly problematic is how it prioritizes spectacle over substance. Whether it was a horse or a spring, his gift was designed to elicit gasps and applause rather than to solve actual problems. Modern audiences will recognize this pattern in leaders who announce bold initiatives without considering implementation details or long-term consequences. The horse, if that's what he created, is especially telling as a metaphor for his leadership style. Horses are powerful, fast, and impressive, but they require constant care, feeding, and training. They're high-maintenance assets that demand ongoing resources. Similarly, leaders who rely on power and intimidation often create systems that require constant energy to maintain. The saltwater spring alternative is equally revealing. It's beautiful, mysterious, and demonstrates mastery over natural forces. But it's not actually useful for the basic needs of a growing city. You can't drink salt water, you can't irrigate crops with it, and while it might attract tourists, it doesn't contribute to the daily functioning of society. Both gifts reflect a fundamental misunderstanding of what Athens needed to thrive. The city was already strategically located and had access to military resources. What they needed was sustainable prosperity, cultural development, and the kind of wisdom that would help them navigate complex political situations. Poseidon's gift addressed none of these deeper needs. The reaction to Poseidon's demonstration probably included a lot of initial excitement and impressed murmurings. Who wouldn't be amazed by a god literally reshaping the earth with a single gesture? But as the spectacle wore off, the practical-minded Athenians likely started asking the important questions. What does this actually do for us? How does this help our city grow and prosper? This highlights a crucial lesson about leadership and decision-making. Initial impressions aren't everything. The most effective solutions are often the ones that continue to provide value long after the excitement of the announcement has faded. Poseidon's gift was front-loaded with impact, but offered limited ongoing benefits. The competitive aspect of Poseidon's approach also reveals his insecurity. By going for maximum visual impact, he was essentially trying to make it impossible for Athena to compete. It's the strategy of someone who's not confident in their ability to win on merit. So they try to overwhelm the competition with sheer force. This kind of competitive methodology often backfires because it reveals more about the competitor's weaknesses than their strengths. Poseidon's dramatic gesture inadvertently highlighted his inability to think strategically about complex problems. He was so focused on winning the moment that he lost sight of winning the long game. The environmental implications of Poseidon's gift are also worth considering. Whether it was a horse or a spring, his creation was essentially imposed on the landscape without consideration for how it would integrate with existing systems. It's the kind of top-down approach that creates impressive short-term results but can cause long-term problems. Modern organizations will recognize this pattern in leaders who announce major changes without consulting stakeholders or considering implementation challenges. These leaders often create impressive presentations and generate initial enthusiasm, but their initiatives frequently fail because they haven't done the groundwork necessary for sustainable success. The ultimate irony of Poseidon's approach is that his desire to demonstrate power actually revealed his limitations. By choosing spectacle over substance, he showed that he didn't understand what the Athenians valued or what they needed to succeed. His gift was impressive to him, but it wasn't useful to them. This ancient contest reminds us that true leadership isn't about proving how powerful you are. It's about understanding what others need and finding ways to provide it. Poseidon's failure wasn't a lack of ability or resources. It was a failure of empathy and strategic thinking. He offered what he thought was impressive rather than what was actually valuable. The lesson for modern leaders is clear. Substance trumps spectacle every time. The most effective solutions are often the simplest ones, and the best leaders are those who listen to what people actually need rather than assuming they know what will impress them. Poseidon's flashy display made for great theater, But Athena's practical olive tree built a civilization. In the moments after Poseidon's earth-shaking demonstration, Athena stepped forward with what must have looked like the most anticlimactic response in divine history. While the ground was still trembling from her uncle's dramatic display, she quietly knelt down and planted a single olive tree. No thunder, no earthquakes, no splitting of the earth, just a goddess getting her hands dirty to plant something that would grow slowly and bear fruit over time. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. Where Poseidon had gone for maximum immediate impact, Athena chose quiet sustainability. Where he had demonstrated raw power, she demonstrated patient wisdom. Her gift probably looked underwhelming at first glance. After all, how could a small tree compete with the dramatic spectacle they had just witnessed? But this is where Athena's genius truly shines through. She understood something fundamental about leadership and value creation that Poseidon had missed completely. The most powerful gifts are often the ones that keep giving long after the initial excitement fades. Her olive tree wasn't just a plant, it was a comprehensive solution to multiple problems that Athens would face for generations to come. The practical benefits of the olive tree were staggering when you really think about them. The olives themselves provided food that could be eaten fresh or preserved for lean times. The oil extracted from olives became currency, cooking ingredient, medicine, and fuel for lamps all in one. The wood from mature trees could be used for construction and crafting. Even the leaves had medicinal properties and could be used for various purposes. What makes Athena's choice even more brilliant is how it reflected her deep understanding of what Athens actually needed to thrive. This wasn't just about providing resources. It was about establishing a foundation for sustainable prosperity. Olive cultivation required knowledge, patience, and careful planning, qualities that would serve the Athenians well in all aspects of their civilization. The olive tree also carried profound symbolic meaning that resonated with Athena's vision for Athens. Olives and olive oil were associated with peace, wisdom, and prosperity throughout the ancient world. By choosing this gift, Athena was essentially saying to the Athenians, I don't offer you tools of war or displays of power. I offer you the means to build a civilization based on wisdom and peaceful prosperity. This symbolic dimension of her gift reveals Athena's sophisticated understanding of leadership and cultural development. She recognized that the values embedded in her gift would influence how the Athenians thought about themselves and their place in the world. The olive tree encouraged them to think long-term, to value patience and cultivation over immediate gratification. The environmental wisdom of Athena's choice is particularly striking when viewed through modern eyes. Olive trees are remarkably resilient and well-adapted to Mediterranean climates. They can live for hundreds of years, require minimal water once established, and actually improve soil quality over time. It's like she gave Athens the perfect example of sustainable agriculture before anyone had coined the term. Her gift also demonstrated a profound understanding of economic development. Rather than giving Athens a finished product, she gave them the means of production. The olive tree would generate wealth continuously rather than providing a one-time benefit. This approach to economic thinking, focusing on productive capacity rather than immediate consumption, became a cornerstone of Athenian prosperity. The educational aspect of Athena's gift is equally important. Learning to cultivate olives required the development of agricultural knowledge, seasonal planning, and intergenerational thinking. These skills naturally extended to other areas of life, encouraging the Athenians to become the kind of people who valued learning, planning, and strategic thinking. What's particularly admirable about Athena's approach is how it required courage to present something so simple after Poseidon's spectacular display. She had to trust that the Athenians would have the wisdom to see beyond immediate spectacle to long-term value. That takes confidence not just in your own judgment, but in the intelligence and wisdom of the people you're trying to serve. The olive tree's growth pattern also perfectly embodied Athena's philosophy of development. Olive trees start small and grow slowly, requiring years of careful tending before they produce their first significant harvest. But once established, they continue producing for centuries. This mirrors the kind of patient, long-term thinking that characterized Athenian approaches to education, politics, and cultural development. The ripple effects of Athena's gift extended far beyond Athens itself. Olive cultivation spread throughout the Mediterranean, becoming a foundation of trade and cultural exchange. The olive branch became a universal symbol of peace and reconciliation. Even today, olive oil remains one of the most prized and culturally significant foods in the world. Her strategic thinking is evident in how the olive tree addressed multiple needs simultaneously: food security, economic development, cultural identity, and even foreign relations, all addressed by a single, elegant solution. This kind of multi-dimensional problem-solving became characteristic of Athenian innovation in everything from politics to philosophy. The humility embedded in Athena's gift is also worth noting. She didn't try to overwhelm the Athenians with displays of her power or demand worship through fear. Instead, she offered them something that would make them more capable and prosperous. It's the kind of leadership that empowers others rather than demanding submission. The timing of her presentation showed tactical awareness as well. Going second meant she could respond to Poseidon's approach rather than just competing with it. Where he had gone for drama, she went for substance. Where he had demonstrated power, she demonstrated wisdom. The contrast made her gift even more meaningful. The olive tree's connection to wisdom traditions is particularly fitting, given Athena's role as goddess of wisdom. Olive oil was used in religious ceremonies, scholarly pursuits, and philosophical discussions. The light from olive oil lamps illuminated the conversations and writings that would become the foundation of Western philosophy. What makes Athena's choice timeless is how it represents the kind of leadership our world desperately needs. Leaders who think beyond the next quarter or election cycle, who prioritize sustainable solutions over impressive announcements, who understand that the best gifts are those that enable others to thrive. Her olive tree reminds us that true power comes from empowering others. The ultimate validation of Athena's strategic thinking came not just from the Athenians' choice, but from the lasting impact of that choice. Athens became synonymous with wisdom, democracy, philosophy, and cultural achievement. The olive tree didn't just win a contest, it planted the seeds of Western civilization. The moment of decision must have been electric. Athens had just witnessed two divine gifts that couldn't have been more different in their approach and philosophy. On one side stood Poseidon's dramatic demonstration of raw power. On the other, Athena's quiet promise of sustainable prosperity. What happened next would determine not just who became their patron deity, but what kind of civilization Athens would become. The deliberation process itself reveals something profound about Athenian character and values. These weren't people who were easily swayed by spectacle or intimidated by displays of divine power. They took time to consider the practical implications of each gift, weighing immediate impressiveness against long-term utility. This thoughtful approach to decision-making would become a defining characteristic of Athenian democracy. When they examined Poseidon's gift more closely, certain limitations became apparent. A horse, while impressive and useful for warfare, was essentially a tool of conflict and conquest. It required constant feeding, care, and training, making it a resource drain as much as a resource gain. The saltwater spring, while beautiful and mysterious, couldn't address the basic needs of a growing city. You can't drink salt water or use it to irrigate crops. Athena's olive tree, by contrast, revealed new layers of value the more they considered it. The olives could feed people, the oil could light their lamps and preserve their food, the wood could build their homes and ships. Rather than requiring constant input like Poseidon's gifts, the olive tree would continue giving for generations with minimal maintenance. The economic implications of their choice were staggering. Olive oil became one of the most valuable commodities in the ancient world, and Athens' early adoption of olive cultivation gave them a significant trade advantage. The tree that Athena planted essentially became the foundation of an export economy that would fund Athens' golden age of art, philosophy, and architecture. But the Athenians' choice went deeper than mere economic calculation. They recognized that Athena's gift aligned with their emerging values of intellectual achievement, democratic participation, and cultural development. The olive tree represented patience, wisdom, and long-term thinking, qualities that would serve them well in developing their revolutionary political systems. The symbolic power of choosing peace over warfare also shouldn't be underestimated. While other Greek city-states like Sparta built their identities around military conquest, Athens chose a different path. They decided to become known for their contributions to human knowledge and cultural achievement rather than their prowess in battle. This decision required remarkable courage and foresight. Rejecting Poseidon's gift meant potentially angering one of the most powerful gods in the pantheon. The god of the seas and earthquakes wasn't known for taking rejection gracefully. But the Athenians chose long-term wisdom over short-term safety, betting that Athena's patronage would ultimately serve them better. The democratic process of this decision is also worth examining. Rather than having a single ruler decide their fate, the Athenians deliberated collectively about which gift would best serve their community. This participatory approach to major decisions would become a cornerstone of Athenian democracy. Their choice reveals sophisticated thinking about what constitutes real strength and security. While Poseidon's gifts offered the appearance of power, Athena's olive tree offered the foundation for genuine prosperity and resilience. The Athenians understood that true security comes from sustainable systems rather than impressive displays. The agricultural wisdom embedded in their decision also had far-reaching consequences. By choosing olive cultivation over military might, Athens committed to becoming a society that valued patient cultivation over quick conquest. This agricultural mindset influenced their approach to education, politics, and cultural development. The environmental sustainability of their choice was remarkable for its time. Olive trees improve soil quality, prevent erosion, and create habitats for other species. By choosing Athena's gift, Athens committed to working with natural systems rather than against them. This ecological wisdom would serve them well as their civilization developed. The decision also reflected their understanding of what we might now call soft power. Rather than trying to dominate through military force, Athens chose to influence through cultural achievement and intellectual leadership. The olive tree became a symbol of this approach, powerful not through force, but through the sustained provision of value. The intergenerational thinking embedded in their choice is particularly impressive. The Athenians were willing to choose a gift that would primarily benefit their children and grandchildren, rather than providing immediate gratification. This long-term perspective became characteristic of Athenian planning and development. The religious implications of their decision also shaped Athenian culture. By choosing Athena, they aligned themselves with values of wisdom, justice, and strategic thinking. These divine attributes became civic virtues that influenced everything from their legal system to their educational philosophy. The competitive advantage that came from their choice extended beyond economic benefits. Athens became known throughout the ancient world as a center of learning and cultural achievement. Students, artists, and philosophers flocked to the city, creating a brain trust that generated innovations in everything from mathematics to drama. Their decision also demonstrated remarkable confidence in their own judgment. They weren't swayed by Poseidon's intimidating presence or the immediate impressiveness of his gift. Instead, they trusted their own analysis and chose the option that aligned with their values. Even though it seemed less spectacular, the legacy of their choice validates their wisdom. Athens became the foundation of Western civilization, not through military conquest, but through cultural and intellectual achievement. Their philosophers, playwrights, and political theorists continued to influence human thought long after their military power had faded. The story of Athens choosing wisdom over power offers timeless lessons for modern decision-makers. It reminds us that the most impressive option isn't always the most valuable, that sustainable solutions often require patience and long-term thinking, and that the choices we make about our values determine the kind of community we become. Their decision also teaches us about the importance of looking beyond immediate benefits to consider long-term consequences. The Athenians could have chosen the excitement of Poseidon's dramatic gifts, but they had the wisdom to choose the option that would serve them best over time. Ultimately, Athens chose wisdom over power because they understood that true strength comes from sustainable systems, patient cultivation, and the courage to invest in the future. Their choice of Athena's olive tree didn't just win them a patron deity, it planted the seeds of one of history's most influential civilizations. Thousands of years after that divine competition, Athena's olive tree continues to bear fruit in ways the ancient Athenians could never have imagined. What started as a simple gift in a contest between gods became one of the most enduring symbols of peace, wisdom, and prosperity in human history. The legacy of that single tree teaches us that the most profound changes often come from the quietest beginnings. The immediate impact of the olive tree on Athens was transformative. Within generations, olive groves surrounded the city, creating not just an agricultural economy but an entire way of life. The rhythm of olive cultivation, planting, tending, harvesting, pressing, became woven into the fabric of Athenian society. This agricultural foundation provided the stability and prosperity that allowed Athens to develop into the intellectual and cultural powerhouse we remember today. But the olive tree's influence extended far beyond economics. It became a living symbol of Athenian values: patience, wisdom, sustainability, and peace. When Athenian athletes competed in the Olympic Games, they were crowned with olive wreaths rather than gold medals. The message was clear. True victory comes from embodying the virtues of wisdom and peaceful excellence, not from displays of dominance. The cultural significance of the olive tree spread throughout the Mediterranean world. Olive oil became sacred in religious ceremonies, essential in daily life, and central to trade networks that connected distant civilizations. The tree that Athena planted in Athens became the ancestor of olive groves across the ancient world, carrying with it the values of thoughtful cultivation and sustainable prosperity. The olive branch, as a symbol of peace, has transcended its ancient origins to become a universal language of reconciliation. From the dove returning to Noah's Ark with an olive branch to the United Nations emblem, this simple plant continues to represent humanity's hope for peaceful resolution of conflicts. Every time someone extends an olive branch in modern parlance, they're invoking the wisdom of Athena's gift. The environmental legacy of the olive tree is particularly relevant in our current era of climate change and sustainability concerns. Olive trees are remarkably resilient, drought-resistant, and capable of thriving in challenging conditions. They represent the kind of sustainable agriculture that works with natural systems rather than against them. In choosing the olive tree, Athens unknowingly chose a model for long-term environmental stewardship. Modern olive cultivation still follows many of the same principles that made Athena's gift so valuable. The trees require minimal water once established, improve soil quality over time, and can produce for centuries with proper care. This approach to agriculture, patient, sustainable, and long-term focused, offers lessons for how we might address contemporary challenges from food security to climate resilience. The olive tree's legacy also lives on in the way we think about leadership and decision-making. Athena's approach, choosing substance over spectacle, sustainability over immediate impact, wisdom over power, provides a timeless model for effective leadership. Her gift reminds us that the most valuable contributions are often the ones that continue giving long after the initial excitement fades. The dietary and health benefits of olive oil have been recognized since ancient times and continue to be validated by modern science. The Mediterranean diet, centered around olive oil consumption, is associated with longevity, cardiovascular health, and cognitive function. Athena's gift wasn't just economically valuable, it was a foundation for human health and well-being. The artisanal and culinary traditions that developed around olive cultivation continue to thrive today. From family-owned olive groves that have operated for generations to modern olive oil tastings that rival wine appreciation, the culture of olive cultivation connects us to ancient traditions while adapting to contemporary tastes. Every bottle of premium olive oil carries forward the legacy of Athena's wisdom. The educational value of olive cultivation, requiring knowledge of seasons, soil, pruning, and processing, created a culture of learning and skilled craftsmanship that extended into other areas of Athenian life. The patient, methodical approach required for successful olive farming became a model for how Athenians approached philosophy, politics, and the arts. The story of the olive tree continues to inspire modern innovators and leaders who understand that the most powerful solutions are often the simplest ones. In our age of technological complexity and rapid change, Athena's gift reminds us that sustainable progress comes from understanding fundamental human needs and finding elegant ways to meet them. The olive tree's legacy challenges us to think differently about what constitutes success and progress. In a world obsessed with rapid growth and immediate results, the olive tree teaches us about the power of patient cultivation, long-term thinking, and sustainable development. True prosperity comes not from extracting maximum value quickly, but from creating systems that can provide benefit for generations. The democratic implications of Athena's gift also continue to resonate. The Athenians' choice to select wisdom over power laid the groundwork for democratic institutions that prioritize collective well-being over individual dominance. The olive tree became a symbol of participatory decision-making and shared prosperity. Today, as we face global challenges that require long-term thinking and sustainable solutions, the legacy of Athena's olive tree offers both inspiration and practical guidance. Whether we're dealing with climate change, economic inequality, or social division, the principles embodied in that ancient gift, patience, wisdom, sustainability, and peace, remain profoundly relevant. The olive tree's story reminds us that the most meaningful achievements often come from humble beginnings. Athena didn't need to shake the earth or create spectacular displays to make a lasting impact. She simply planted something valuable and trusted in its potential to grow. This approach to creating positive change, quiet, sustained, and focused on long-term benefit, offers a powerful alternative to the loud, dramatic approaches that often dominate our attention. As we reflect on the journey from divine competition to lasting legacy, we see that Athena's olive tree represents more than just a clever choice in an ancient contest. It embodies timeless principles of wisdom, sustainability, and peaceful prosperity that continue to guide us toward better decisions and more meaningful achievements. The olive tree that Athena planted in Athens may have been a simple gift, but its legacy reminds us that the most profound changes often come from the most thoughtful choices. In a world that often values quick fixes and dramatic gestures, the olive tree stands as a testament to the enduring power of patience, wisdom, and sustainable growth. So the next time you taste olive oil, see an olive branch, or hear someone extend an olive branch in peace, remember the ancient wisdom of Athena's gift. Remember that true strength comes not from displays of power, but from the quiet cultivation of things that matter. Remember that the most valuable solutions are often the simplest ones, and that wisdom will always triumph over spectacle in the end. The olive tree continues to grow, continues to give, and continues to teach us that the best gifts are those that keep giving long after the giver is gone. In choosing wisdom over power, Athens chose a legacy that would nourish not just their own civilization, but the entire human family for generations to come. Thank you for joining this journey through ancient flavors and timeless wisdom. May these stories inspire you to choose substance over spectacle, sustainability over short-term gain, and wisdom over power in your own life's choices. Sweet dreams, and remember, the best gifts are those that keep giving